Welcome to Changing the Perception of Blindness, one conversation at a time, where we aim to break down barriers, demystify blindness, and promote real and lasting change. Join host David Steinmetz as he connects us with professionals who are making a positive impact in the community. These leaders help empower individuals who are blind or have other disabilities to live a full and inclusive life. Let's lean in as David kicks off today's conversation.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Changing the Perception of Blindness, one conversation at a time. We're going to have a really great show today. We're going to talk a lot about assistive technology, training, blindness, and who knows where this conversation is going to go. And that's what is so great about connecting with people in the community who are making a difference for people who are blind or other disabilities to create that inclusive life that we all want. I'd like to first thank Arizona Industries for the Blind for being our sponsor of this show. AIB has played a critical role in my career, personal and professional life. I sit back and I think about this question about, have you ever felt out of place? All right, we talk a lot about culture nowadays and so forth. And there was a lot of times that through my blindness journey that I felt like I didn't fit in. I have a degenerative retinal disease, and it's a slow progression that my field of vision and my visual acuity goes away. And throughout this time, it was like I was sitting on a fence. I had one leg in the sighted world, and I was desperately holding on to that. And the other leg was in this arena of blindness. And I fought really hard to not accept or avoid having to deal with the blindness. And so as I continued to struggle, that kept me in a place where I wasn't moving forward in my life. I would just kind of felt stagnant and stuck. And it wasn't until I kind of leapt off that fence and embraced the blindness and embraced my reality and understanding of who I am as a person and what blindness is, did I feel like my self-confidence, my strength, and my drive to do more. And it's through this acceptance is where I kind of found my why at Arizona Industries for the Blind. And that why is to help others to have the experiences that I did, right? As my vision continued to decrease, my career continued to grow because the organization was evaluating or respected me as a person, not as a blind person. And it also helped me really drive my passion for changing the perception of blindness, where the show comes out of. So having these experiences and having the opportunity to connect with others and bring awareness of the abilities that people who are blind or vision impaired bring to the workforce, bring to the community is so important. And that's why I'm really happy to introduce my guest today, Niraj Parikh. He is with the Center for Assistive Technology Training, or CAT, C8 with two T's. And Niraj, why don't you go ahead and give yourself a little introduction, and we'll get the show rolling.
Thank you so much. So I have been with CAT for about a year now. And prior to that, I was working with individuals with disabilities, from cognitive disabilities to physical disabilities, and serving different states like Texas, Arizona, Colorado, parts of California and Nevada, where we helped individuals go back to school and go back to work. As we were talking earlier, I have a couple of kids, and as I'm getting some gray hair on my head,
Mhm.
wanted to kind of move into something where I can make an impact that's a little bit longer lasting than just
Mm,
running day-to-day operations in a business.
mhm.
This opportunity came through from Foundation for Blind Children, and I've been grateful to be part of this organization. And CAT, it's a phenomenal place to work for, and just been very, very grateful.
Thank you. And maybe we can explain a little bit more what CAT is and how did it come about?
Oh, that's my favorite piece of the entire conversation about CAT. So the way the story goes is Dr. Gilliam, he is the president of AIDB, Alabama Institute for the Deaf and Blind. and him, as well as you guys probably know all the big shots over at APH, but his name is Craig Meter. He's the president. And so these individuals have conversations with congressmen all the time. And most times, like David, you probably know about the federal quota program that all the
Mm-hmm.
students across K through 12 get assistive technology through American Printing House. And so they're also another great partner of ours. And so the way this entire model of CAT came through was these individuals are having conversations with congressmen, and they identified that the students are getting the assistive technology,
Mm-hmm.
but the teachers of the visually impaired, they are coming out of school with one class on assistive technology. In that 150-minute class, they're covering everything from every disability and AT.
Hmm.
When they get into their classrooms, they have students that can range from first grade to 12th grade.
Okay.
And they're serving between 5 to 10 to 15 students per class, and all their needs vary, their disabilities vary,
Mm-hmm.
and they all are using different types of technology. But there's no way that one teacher can keep up with all of that, and every year the AT evolves.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where CAT was born, that to support these teachers and for them to get the assistive technology in their hands, and also to train them every single time they have a new student or a new technology. There has to be a group that supports these individuals. So that's where CAT was born, and that's where we live. Like, we go and train the trainers so that they can in turn provide that service to the students and teachers.
Awesome. So make sure I understood it, and I'm going to put it in maybe a different term. You think about an auto mechanic, and they have to be able to diagnose and repair hundreds of different models of vehicles.
That's right.
And so in order to do that, they often are certified in different areas or as a certified mechanic, whether it's in electronics, etc. And so you're providing that opportunity for that mechanic to learn all the different types of technology, from screen readers to handheld magnifiers to braille displays and all the latest technology, assistive technology, because every student's needs are different.
100%. But the only part that's tough for these teachers is that they're not trained on AT.
Right.
Like, the mechanic is actually trained on the cars, different cars, when they go through their education.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are taught, or they're going through the teaching certification to teach students on curriculum.
Oh,
They're
gotcha. Yeah.
not being taught on AT,
Mm-hmm.
and now that's an additional piece that they have to be on top of,
Hmm.
and then going into their lesson planning, and then teaching them math, and then teaching them braille, then they're going, O&M, and it's this AT piece is just kind of like thrown in because AT has evolved so much.
Sure. Oh, that's incredible. Okay, great. I appreciate you adding that in there, because you got to think that, I mean, it's hard enough to be a teacher nowadays,
That's
right?
right.
And to be able to, how do you help somebody?
Yeah.
If you don't know it, I ask my kids all the time, because I can't spell IT, let alone AT. How do I do something on my phone? And it's, they're whiz bang, gbiz, do this, do that.
Right.
Wait, slow down. Let's go back and show me how you're doing that so that I don't have to do it. So having the teacher trying to be able to instruct, making sure that the kids are getting the understanding, comprehending the information that's being taught to them, and then being able to demonstrate it. And so they need that technology, and then the instructor how to
100%.
best support that student. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so you got in this because you were doing similar work in schools as well. Were you one of those AT instructors in school?
No, I had no intention of coming to this field. So, in the 2000s, I was at ASU getting my business degree, and I was going to be management information systems. That was my core subject that I was learning. And the 2000 .com bubble burst. And so, people with 10 years of experience were getting their internships, jobs, and things like that. So there was no real potential for me to kind of go in that field, and I needed some technology experience. So I saw assistive technology specialist job opening at the Disability Resource Center at ASU.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, there's some technology in it. Maybe there's some correlation. So I went and applied for the job. They're like, you have no clue how you do. I'm like, I'll figure it out. I'll give me the
Right?
job.
Yeah.
I really
Right.
need the job. I literally begged that guy for, 2 or 3 times I went in, and they finally gave me a job. I learned on the job. Then they started sending me to conferences, and I was being paid $10 an hour, but had my own office and got my
Okay.
business cards. And I'm like, man,
I made it.
I'm living the life. And so then got to go to a couple of conferences and learned about AT, and that became the passion.
Awesome. And shout out to ASU.
That's right.
We talk about teachers and students and those with visual impairments in classrooms. Do you think that there's a correlation between in the education and employment? Because I know there's lots of studies and statistics that say children with visual impairments are less likely to graduate high school, let alone go to college and complete college.
Yeah, I don't have my stats with me, but we have a presentation on this where I think if someone learns Braille at a young age, the chances of them successfully graduating high school, I think exponentially grows.
Hmm.
And those who graduate from high school and they know assistive technology, their success in college exponentially grows. And if those two things are happening, then for them to find employment, for those individuals to get their PhDs, for them to lead an organization is exponentially higher. So I think it all starts at this young K through 12 where the teachers are being empowered with this AT. And if they teach it to the students, then the future looks great for them. Future for those students to be successful and kind of level the playing field is significantly higher than one who doesn't have that.
I totally agree. Even when we see, for myself as an example, I lost my vision later in life, later in my 20s, and having some experience on computers or background on how things work, but then having to do that non-visually
Yeah.
was that learning curve. And a lot of times I see people similar situations where they haven't had the experience with computers or technology and they really struggle with it, and sometimes they don't have the same opportunities to higher employment or growth and so forth. I mean, there's lots of street smart people that are able to find alternative ways to do the things that they need to do to get ahead and be successful, and others that kind of feel like they're maybe in that one spot forever because they didn't gain those skills.
Absolutely.
So your program is mainly focused on that K to 12. Is that right? Or
That's right. I think the topic that you're bringing up, I think you had this conversation with my boss's boss, Julie Oliver, and the employment and the perceptions. And so I don't want to rehash that conversation, but I completely agree. I think a lot of times we have these limitations that are placed on individuals because of the perception of things. And also not knowing technology makes a huge difference nowadays because everything you do, if you're any skilled labor or not, AT or assistive technology or technology can benefit. And we are lucky that we get to, day in, day out, go in and provide this service to the teachers who are empowering those students to go back and really become powerhouses. But just to kind of share, like, this whole concept wouldn't exist if partners like Foundation for Blind Children or AIDB, Alabama Institute Deaf and Blind, or American Printing House, if they don't come together, if the congressmen don't provide that fund, this doesn't exist. And I think there's a lot of value when these types of leaders collaborate, and it really benefits the students in a public school in Arizona. So I feel like we as a CAT program get to provide that to the teachers, and we're grateful to have that opportunity.
Yeah, so many programs that are vital to children's success in school,
Yeah.
which leads to, we were talking about just a few minutes ago, success in higher education and employment is critical. And a lot of times things go unmentioned or unheard.
Yeah.
And so it's great that we're able to share what the CAT program is. Do you support teachers in public schools? So in the general ed class, or are these in more of the core blindness training program?
So for CAT, it's we have two lanes that we follow. Number one is K through 12. So it could be any individual that is in the K through 12 process. It could be private, public, it could be special ed, it could be, at a school at FBC, it could be anywhere, and we will support that individual or that professional. It could be a teacher, it could be a therapist, it could be a para, and our other limitation or other, I guess, focus is we have higher end assistive technology from the APH catalog. So those of you probably know APH catalog back and forth, but the higher end stuff like the JAWS and the Zoom text or the magnifiers or the Braille note displays, those are the ones that we focus on and really go into a school system and provide that support. And it could be anybody. And kind of give you a simple couple of challenges that people run into that teachers talk to us about all the time. A lot of times it's not even about AT. It's that we have say a Chameleon 20 with an iPad, and the para is not able to connect to the internet. And when you're not able to just connect through Bluetooth or internet, then it becomes really difficult for them to teach the kids anything. So even those kinds of problems, we can go in and solve and be there for them and provide that support and training. So there's nothing too small or nothing too big that we can't do.
That's awesome. I'm going to play. I don't have to play. I'm going to play dumb. So say that
so many
again.
Comments came through my head on that one, but I'm just gonna let that one slide.
You're going to let it go. Thank
I'll
you.
let it go, David.
We're on air. I appreciate that. I'll give you $1
I know we're
afterwards.
being recorded, so I was like, I'll save it for afterwards.
So explain the technology one more time. So there's a device that connects to an iPad. What was the device?
Chameleon 20.
Chameleon 20. What is a Chameleon 20?
Okay, so I love this because, he could probably speak to it more than I can, but there's a Braille note display. So basically, it's one line, either 20 cells or 40 cells, and individuals or students who are learning Braille or are, being taught Braille at a young age, and they use it for note taking or maybe even reading school materials or reading books. They have access to it. Now, they can connect that device to a laptop or an iPad and be able to browse the web, for example, and read something from there. But when those two devices don't talk to each other or the iPad is not connected to the school's internet, then the para cannot teach. The teacher cannot teach. And majority of their time goes into that because there was some small feature that they didn't turn on, or the Bluetooth they didn't turn off and turn back on, so that the Bluetooth device can recognize the chameleon. And I think a lot of those small things can prevent someone from or derail the entire lesson plan for that teacher. And for a CAT representative to be there and to support them through that, we're happy to do that. And just so I can now talk more about CAT, since you opened the door, I'm not gonna now close it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So we actually don't only do this for Arizona. This is a national program, and the hope is that we provide this service in every single state. Now, currently, we have 3 strategically placed partnerships with Washington State School for the Blind, so Pacific Northwest, at Foundation for Blind Children, and then AIDB in Alabama. We serve a host of states. So just for the Southwest region, we have 6 states. So California, Nevada, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico. So that's who we serve, and we go to rural areas. We go anywhere that there's a need. And so CAT team will travel to any remote area to provide this service that we're talking about.
Okay. Very good. And is this is it students' equipment? Is it so API may provide a braille display,
Uh-huh.
or I think there's some really cool stuff like a Monarch coming out or just came out that helps do graphs and other things.
Yeah.
Are those pieces of technology provided to the student free of cost or to the teacher? Is it the school's property? Who owns that? Just out of curiosity, who owns that?
He knows these answers, and I'm gonna be put on spot into being recorded. So let me give you
Political answer?
the process. No, no, no. I don't do well with politically correctness, but so the kids get this technology to every state. APH is really connected to every state and every school district and every classroom. And there is a federal quota program, and every state has multiple individuals who support that and can get the equipment for those teachers and those students. So that program exists, and it's called the federal quota program. And so students can keep that device depending on the funds of that school and how the whole state works. Because the teachers didn't have access to it, that's where the CAT program comes in.
Okay.
And so it is for the end user, for that teacher to get training or the product from CAT, there is no cost directly associated. But AIDB and APH, they work extremely hard with the congressman and our government to make sure that our programs are funded, and so that we can continue to provide this at no cost to that individual.
Sure.
But of course, to run a program like this, there's tremendous amount of cost involved and
Sure.
and trainings involved. So technically it is free for that end user, but it comes with a heavy cost from our government and programs like APH and
Sure.
AIDB.
Yep, absolutely. And these things are critical, right? So advocating for the CAT program and your
100%.
partners in Congress, right? There's so many programs that we don't think about in our day-to-day lives that are out there that are supporting people, that are empowering people, enriching the lives of people with disabilities, and they often go unheard or unknown of. So it's awesome that this partnership that you have with CAT, APH, and AIDB, and as well as the federal program to do that, and love that support.
And you mentioned the Monarch.
Mm-hmm.
That is coming out. They've been researching that product for the last couple of years now. And APH had built collaboration literally worldwide. I think upwards of like 30 companies had to work on that product, but APH kind of drove that to make something like that happen. It's a 10 line by 32 cell refreshable display. And for the first time, a student can read and access, pictures real time. And for that technology, it's going to be coming out first. Delivery will be made September 1st.
Okay.
And for that program to or that device to kind of get in the student's hand, they've been making sure that over 85 teachers across the nations get training.
Awesome.
They get the product testing done. Students got product testing done. I mean, so many things had to align. And now APH is working with the government to figure out, like, how do you fund this? Because no one can afford an $18,000 equipment.
Right.
So how do you subsidize that for the individual and that school district? And that's the next project that they're on. So, I mean, a lot of things happen behind the scenes
Sure.
for us not to know, like you were saying.
You're not going to cut the check?
If I had the money that you're making, then I definitely would. But from what I know, I think I don't make as much as you.
Okay.
And Karen.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I will
advocate
my boss as soon as I get done with this now.
I got some snacks in my bag for you.
Thank you.
So a lot of times we're talking about training for the teachers, technology for the students. And you think about this as you're talking about this and listening to you're talking about like the Monarch, for example, and you mentioned real time, right? Is you're in a classroom. I was at ASU. I took a geology class of all things, and right, the study of rock, and you think about the graphs or the pictures of the different sediment lines of sediment, and you can't see it. So how do you do
Yeah.
the lesson? Or if you want to get that brailled, well, that's going to take a while. Or you get it in advance or whatever, so you're not keeping up with the rest of the class.
No.
When I heard that real time, that really is a game changer. That student is engaged, actively learning with his peers in the classroom,
Yeah,
or her.
yeah. I mean, part of FBC, there, my boss, Brian Wohler, he's like the lead for the media center, and
Mm-hmm.
they work with 38 states and like 101 some inmates, and they create books, textbooks,
Mm-hmm.
right, all day long, math and everything. Well, those textbooks don't have images unless it's specially requested. So the students are getting the text, but they've never had access to all the images. So
Mm-hmm.
what you're saying is 100% true, that there's been a limitation of that. And so how do you learn like everybody that's quote unquote able-bodied is
Mm-hmm.
learning? And now to have a device that can do both, I think that's the game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds amazing. You mentioned cost as a barrier, possibly to people getting this technology. Are there other barriers to students and teachers that you see in this field?
If I had my team here, this conversation would just blow up at this point because we have two guys on our team. They are so passionate about this topic. And one thing they constantly tell me is to get access to pictures. Like when you say the word triangle and you've never felt what it is,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden at age 12, or age or 12th grade, Monarch comes out and now they're like, this is a triangle. Your brain just hasn't learned that. And so it becomes vital for young kids who are blind and them having access to technology like this. I don't care if the barriers are there financially, but I feel like somewhere we all need to advocate, like, how do you get these types of technologies now, since they exist, in
Mm-hmm.
front of those students? Because if they don't know the word triangle physically,
Mm-hmm.
then they can't learn. The learning curve just becomes exponentially harder.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that is that in itself a barrier, because how many times are you going to expect a teacher to print out every single shape that she's mentioning in a sentence?
Sure.
How many images are you going to print out? How many times are you going to make because embossers aren't available in every school, in every classroom. It's not like a printer where it prints out things just seamlessly because you saw a picture, you hit print and it comes out. It doesn't work like that. There's a software that has to translate it into, the embosser language, and then it prints. So all of those things will seem to go away with something like a Monarch coming out.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that, and again, it's not instantaneously, right?
No.
So teacher, that maybe one more step that the teacher's doing in their lesson plan is, okay, I have to put all this material together for a student or students.
Yeah.
And Embosser is basically taking that image and raising it up on the paper, basically. Is that right?
Right.
And so the student is then tracing that shape or image with their fingers to be able to make the connection between a triangle and this shape.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it is hard, right? And if you don't if you haven't seen it, and our world is so visual about making the correlations between shapes or a color or other things, and if you it's hard if you can't make that connection to what that means, and how is it important or relevant to what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, I have like two stories that just blew my mind. Like
Okay.
and two spectrums, right? The first spectrum is I never recognize this because I am sighted, and recently I was working with an individual at Perkins, and they said something really critical, that when a child is born that is sighted, they see something, they see all this technology, they'll just go there, pull the wires, they'll touch it, they'll press it. But a child that's born blind, the world has to be brought to him or her.
Mm,
And unless that happens intentionally by the parents or a teacher who's well versed in that,
mm-hmm,
that child is not learning the shapes and the textures and everything,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
So that really changed how I look at things.
mm,
And recently, we were just last week to kind of bring the whole thing to back to CAT again and the impact that it's having. We were able to assign some equipment to two TVIs in a rural area in Nevada. And when we gave some of these embossers and braille note displays and light boxes and some of the technology that we have access to, we assigned it to her. She literally started crying, and I have not seen that. So this was my first experience with that,
mm-hmm,
and to observe something like that, it moves you that where the gaps are in our processes, and to be
mm-hmm,
able to have a program that exists and to be able to provide something like this.
mm.
So now she can at least take that technology, print things out, and then teach the individual students that she's working with. So I thought those two things really kind of speak to why such programs, such energy, that things that you're doing with V-Rate
Right,
and all these organizations that you
right.
work with, all of these things make an impact. So I think I'm just grateful to be part of that process.
Yeah, that's and I can hear that in your voice, and as you speak, the passion for what you're doing in the CAP program. And you talk about technology and all these different devices and education and train the trainer. And when you went back and you brought it back to when an infant is born and how we learn from a visual world, right, is that curiosity
Right.
drives you forward. And if you don't see that thing to reach for, or you don't know it's there, right? And I find that I do that now as I continue to lose my vision. Is right is if it's not out of sight, out of mind,
That's correct.
right? So what you don't know is what you don't know, and so it's having to be able to explore your world and having technology that assists you with that, whether it's any of these devices that you mentioned. Again, way above my pay grade, so I'm not even going to try
Me
and
too.
repeat them. Programs like CAT or FBC or organizations like Arizona Industries for the Blind that are creating the employment side of the house is bringing all these things together, making people aware of it, and trying to take away the fear, the unknown, right? And maybe it's like you're talking coaching the infant, the child to take that step and
Absolutely.
to that one step builds into a second step and then they're off and they're running. And it's to be able to maybe build that confidence. And the teachers have play such a huge role in our children's lives and educating them and making sure that they are learning and having the visual impairment or blindness in the classroom and try and make sure that that student is staying up with the rest of the class is critical. So I appreciate the work that you're doing. A lot of times, and I'm going to kind of go off away from CAT for a minute and just say that, for parents of children who are blind, I hear oftentimes that that can be a barrier, that they are afraid for that child and what then if I'm going to be afraid, I'm going to protect that child.
Mhm.
And in that protection, am I really protecting him by not providing the resources or saying that my child doesn't need it, whatever it may be? Do you hear any of that in
I
the
don't.
awesome?
I don't hear that because I place such an insignificant role in those students' lives, right? Like my role is less than 1%
Mm-hmm.
because I work with the teacher, and if she reaches out, only then I react. Mine is very reactionary. Our organization reacts to someone reaching out to us. So we play a very small role, but I'm not ignorant of when I comes from the organization perspective, we play an insignificant role, and I don't hear this day to day. But the early intervention teachers, the teachers that are working with these parents, those conversations, I'm always the outside one listening in.
Gotcha.
And to be able to recognize that these parents are going through that. And so these teachers are not only teaching the students, but they're getting the parents ready that, hey, look, you're protecting them, and that's actually doing them a disservice. Let them fall, let them play with their food, let them make a mess, because that is how they're going to experience the world. And I have been part of those dialogues where I'm not interacting, I'm just a
Sure.
listener and an observer. And this is why, like, we're fortunate enough to play a small role in that. But man, these teachers, the TVIs, that's a whole new world for me, which I didn't know about a year ago.
Okay.
They are phenomenal human beings. Like, the amount of work that they do, and those paras and the lesson plans and working with the parents and the guardians and coaching them up, exposing them, and organizations like FBC and others. I mean, there's so much work being done in Tucson, ASDB. They're holding, spring flings. They're holding Night for Sight. They're holding events where they go trick or treating, and making like the other time. So I've only been there for a year, but I got to be part of the egg hunt and see that. And they put these sound things in there, so it beeps. And so let the kids go and experience how to, find eggs. Or they brought, like, I didn't see it, but like I saw the remainder of it. They brought in like 100 tons of snow so the kids can play in snow. And, before that, I never thought of it, because we would just take our kids to Flagstaff and, like, here's snow, go play in it.
Right.
But then to bring the snow to them in that school, I never thought of that. And I feel like that's where these organizations, these teachers are just, man, like, they're doing things with these parents. What you're referring to is these people. I think we don't play a role in that at all. But
yeah, well, it's a team effort.
Yeah.
And amazing stories and things that FBC is doing, and the other service providers that work with children is, and we were talking about it, right, is that exposure, those opportunities to have an experience that really further change their lives.
Absolutely.
Because it just opens up these worlds and build, whether it's confidence or, just the education learning. And to be free and feel good just to do the things that you.
And it teaches the parents that, hey, I'm going to have to expose my kids this way. So I think it's I don't know if the school is for the parents or the kids sometimes, because you have to educate both.
Absolutely. In terms of CAT and AT, assistive technology, what do you think is the next big thing in technology, or what is missing that's needed?
Man, if I can predict it, I wouldn't be working.
We would all we wouldn't be hungry anymore, right?
But I think the few conferences that I've had the opportunity to attend to promote CAD and just kind of be in that space, everything is moving towards AI. Okay. So something simple, I can give you an example of, if someone with a learning disability cannot understand a tone. For example, an email comes through and they're not able to read the tone in that, there is an AI tool where they can put it in there and it'll say, you know what, David seems really upset with you right now. Or Karen is really saying, hey, she's so happy for you. Because that's where a lot of these individuals with who are on the spectrum maybe aren't able to read the tone. And so AI tool now provides that. Then I saw on the other end, someone who is blind is able to wear a harness, like almost like a jacket that goes over their shoulder. And they have the bone conduction headphones. And I'm walking, and if I'm running into a microphone or table, it will buzz accordingly. And so it will make a sound in my ear and vibrate on my shoulders from which direction somebody is walking in, or if there is a table or a chair, and it warns me. So I feel like everything is going in that direction where AI is going to be a vital piece of everything we do. I
Hmm.
mean, if you just notice mine in your day-to-day operations, like I don't know how much you use ChatGPT, but I'm on that thing for everything, on Copilot for everything, and I'm not plugging them. I just use it a
Right,
lot.
right,
And now these tools are actually part of Word and Excel and my emails and my Teams, and I can literally say, "Hey, my boss just sent me 2 pages worth of information. I'm not going to read that. Can you summarize it for me?"
hmm,
And it will. And now to take that to the next step and say, what was the tone? And can you give me a couple of sentences and how I can respond?
hmm,
Now someone who's physically unable to type can use Dragon and be able to come up with a response
right.
in real time and not having to wait hour, 2 hours, 3 hours and be in a real time dialogue. So I feel like AT is going to have to move and adopt AI.
Hmm.
I think that's the way it's going.
Yeah, I agree with you. It definitely is changing the way, and it's not just for the disability community, but for everybody, right?
Everybody.
The tools, and it definitely will put everybody on the same level in the sense of being able to access information or communicate, or like you're saying, identify tones and what is the feel, almost like, right, we're asking what's that feeling within this message. And I've seen it where have a wearable device, and you can be in a museum, take a picture of what it is that you're standing in front of, and you can just start asking questions, and it's responding to who the painter is, what the colors are, what time period, just all of this information is available to you, really just by tapping, a pair of glasses and asking a question. So things that were just a blank wall to me, now has color and vibrant and emotion, feeling and depth and all these things that someone who's standing there and seeing that visually.
Yeah, and I think that's for learned people like you who go to museums. I don't go much, but like if you take day to day, I think like tomorrow refrigerators, they already have technology that can tell you what's inside your fridge, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Now imagine where AI is going to be, and someone who's blind doesn't even have to get out of their sofa and be like, "Hey, what's in my fridge right now?" And based on what's inside of it, can you come up with a recipe of what I can cook with just using a microwave?
Hmm.
And to be able to have that dialogue and then kind of come to a result immediately, I think that's going to change the daily life for a lot of
Hmm.
individuals with, who are visually impaired. So I think that's where AI, just if you remember 20 years ago, so when I first got into the assistive technology world, to be able to have your text read out loud to you, you needed a software that had to be, loaded onto a PC, and then you had to press a bunch of buttons.
Hmm.
And now today it's part of our phones.
Hmm.
And so just like how that's evolved and it's become so user friendly, I think this is how AI is going to change our daily living,
Sure.
where you say, "Hey, I want to wear, I need to wear a blue shirt with khakis today. Tell me where that's in my closet." I feel like that's where things are going, and that's
Hmm.
kind of what the new AT is going to look like.
Yeah. Pretty cool stuff
I think so.
that's
Yeah,
happening, and I can't wait to see it and use it and continue to build on that and what it can do for people who are blind and people with disabilities, whether it's in education, work, or in life, and have those experiences that don't separate us, don't
yeah,
make us less engaged in the community.
absolutely.
And it's just so important to have these conversations with experts like yourself, and to be able to share with others how important the awareness is that outside of your field of vision, all these things are going on around you.
Absolutely.
And but when you actually look, you'll find it. And I think it's important that we, as society, kind of open up those field of vision and start asking the questions and why or how, have these respectful conversations that allow people to share an experience or share an idea or concept.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank you for being here, Niraj. If somebody wants to learn more about CAT, or give you a nickel for a piece of bubble gum or something,
Nickel,
how are
I'll
they
take
going to
it.
be able to do that?
So if they go to seeitourway.org, that's the website for FBC. So SEEITOUR way, WAY, .org, and then there's a assistive technology tab. They get to us, and we can provide the services. They can call me, email me, and we'll be there to support them.
Fantastic. Thank you. I hope today's conversation really reinforces my belief that with the right training and the right technology and the right attitude, people who are blind can compete and are successful in life. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to Changing the Perception of Blindness, one conversation at a time, with your host, David Steinmetz. Be sure to subscribe to Changing the Perception of Blindness, one conversation at a time, on your favorite podcast platform. And tune in live on Phoenix Business RadioX every third Friday at 9 a.m. We hope you feel inspired by today's conversation, and maybe we've even sparked a new idea or opportunity.